You know, in the past, we've had to fight our way in by going to court because the hand-picked Trudeau staffers that run the place, they don't like Rebel News. That's the whole reason they set up this government-run debates commission to keep us out. Well, in 2019, we went to court and we got a court order letting us in. In 2021, we went to court and got a court order letting us in. So this time around, they sort of realized how the story was going to end. They negotiated with us back and forth, and they finally let us in. They let us have 5 reporters who could ask questions. And in the first night, the French debates, we got 4 of those 5. I was the only one on our team that didn't get a question. 4 out of 17 questions, which is pretty good. The CBC and its French version, Radio Canada, had 4 as well. But oh my God, did that ever cause an earthquake amongst not so much the politicians, they didn't care, but amongst our rival journalists. That's very interesting, isn't it? The government has sort of given up on censoring us, but it's the rival media who haven't. In fact, they're more vicious than ever. I'm back in Toronto, but we filmed a heck of a show for you yesterday. Enjoy, that's probably the wrong word. Watch with horror and fascination the story of the last 2 days.
Welcome back to Occam's Razor for a follow-up to the mainstream media meltdown. Rebel News has had a follow-up with some more debate media room footage, and feel free to view the whole thing on their channel. But what's important to note here is how independent media has become a pariah to the establishment. We know why. Because they can't control the message, and it's driving them bonkers.
I am angry because we took the blame, we're looking in, for the bad behavior of the media party. We conducted ourselves with grace and dignity, and Drea really set the tone for all of us with how to conduct ourselves. And for 2 days straight, we were subjected to bullying and derision and scorn and lies and misinformation published about us.
And physical assault.
And physical assaults, as my friend David found out tonight. I mean...
Oh, Terry Gillan! Oh!
What are you doing?
Terry Gillan?
What are you gonna... Bro, you guys are out. You touched me with that.
No!
I did not touch you, sir. You're a liar. You're a goddamn liar.
You're a liar.
Oh, yeah, nice try, guys.
You just
Nice
hit me.
try.
What are you doing? Police.
No, the police is backed by the Liberal.
That happy, cheerful Liberal Party member is no other than Terry Guillon, a senior media advance to the office of the Prime Minister of Canada, acting exactly how one would expect a far less elitist of the natural ruling party of Canada to act, don't you think? So why is everyone on the left losing their minds, treating independent media like they're a pariah that needs to be banned, that Canadians need to be protected from, that apparently Canadians are incapable of making up their own mind when it comes to asking questions or reading things or deciding what is mis or disinformation? This is something that the legacy media is really fixed on because they know that they're on the losing end of funding that is being provided to them through our tax dollars to keep them afloat. Look at this picture. Look at this picture of Ezra. This is yet another piece that has come out from CBC. And this author here, Jorge, I don't know if he picked this picture, but they always try to pick the most unflattering pictures. This picture has got to be pre-Sun News. This is how old this picture is. The amount of media bias is absolutely sickening. They actually believe that when they print stuff like this, that the majority of Canadians can't see through what they're doing. After facing criticism for allowing right-wing media activists, right-wing media. You know, every time you say right-wing media, where do you think that places the author? Probably on the far left of the spectrum, which means that you're sharing space on the spectrum on the far left side with Mao and Stalin and that funny guy from Germany with the funny mustache that if you say his name on CommuTube, they ban your videos. I won't say his name, but that's where you put yourself when you go crazy like this, when you start accusing other people of being political activists, right? The commission decided Thursday came amid tensions between Levant, a political activist. Yes. Why are you branding him a political activist when he's obviously a business owner? He's a journalist. He's an author. Why do we get here? Why did he have to register two entities with Elections Canada? Why did he do that? Well, we'll tell you why. Because the last election, he wrote a book and he published it in time for the election. It was called The Libranos. There were over a dozen books published around that same time about the opposition leader. But the only author that they went after for violating elections ethics was Ezra. So he knew, he learned from that lesson. He tried to take him to court and he said, all you had to do was register. So I said, it's that easy. And that's what he did. He can't win for trying because now he's a political activist. He's not the only one doing it, but it was the only way to stop from being fined. They pushed him into a corner, and he did exactly this. But speaking of pushing them into corners, why are they still fighting independent media? Back in 2011, Sun Media started up, and they ran till 2015, when finally the establishment shut them down. You couldn't even get a regular conservative, unbiased TV station started in the medium at the time without being killed by the liberal establishment. So he did the next best thing. He started up Rebel News. And here we are 10 years later. And they're humming along just fine. In fact, the establishment continually went after them in every way that they could. YouTube demonetized them. And now, apparently recently, they've been remonetized. But that didn't stop them. They went to Rumble. They've been self-funding. And every time somebody accuses them of being politically active, it's because at every single turn, they are attacked by the establishment, shut down, and kept out of events, and being labeled as not being journalists when all they want to do is journalism.
Narrative. So for 24 hours after last night's debate, all the regime media were gnashing their teeth. They were raging, how dare Rebel News take over our event? Well, we had 4 questions out of 17. Once every 4 years, we can get a question too. But I saw Michelle Cormier, the commissioner of the Debates Commission, do a media circuit and basically get whipped and flayed by every regime journalist he talked to, especially the CBC here. Take a look at this insane broadcast on the CBC where David Cochrane basically stops being a journalist and becomes like a lawyer advocate to try and convince the Debates Commission to kick us out or something. Just watch a couple minutes of this.
Will they be able to do what they did? Rebel News got as many questions as I think CBC, Radio Canada, Press Canadian, and CTV or Global combined last night. There were almost 50% of the questions, and some of them ventured into territory that really are not issues in this election campaign, were not issues in that debate. And I'm not saying reporters should be restricted in terms of what they ask, but if the Debate Commission is going to organize these things, it didn't seem to have control on it last night, sir.
Well, we were learning from what happened last night, and you'll see, hopefully, a fair representation tonight.
But didn't the same thing happen in 2021? I remember vividly at the museum in Gatineau that the same sort of thing happened with people stacking the microphones and the questions is going in a totally different direction.
Well, there's only so much we can do to control free speech,
I understand that.
And you got to understand that.
But, lifeguards got to look after the pool, right? And the debate commission was set up for this. And people are now calling for it to be completely scrapped because of what we saw last night.
These people are control freaks. The only thing that's been called to be scrapped is the CBC. Seriously? A pool monitor? Looking over the pool? They believe they have the responsibility to control the information to Canadians. They also believe that they have the responsibility to control free speech. He just said it. Oh, there's only so much control we can do for free speech. Really? Well, it's not your job to control free speech. These far-left liberal lunatics, once they get a little whiff of control over you, they want to control absolutely everything. And we've seen that for the last 9 years and what they've done to Canada. So, federal debate chief. That was the guy you just saw on the screen talking. Let's bring you to this here. Last September, a federal court judge upheld Ottawa's decision denying journalism tax credits to Rebel News because it doesn't produce enough original news content. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Not enough original news content? When the CBC and CTV and Global are often the first ones to grab a press release and then publish it or read it word for word. Those original content guys, right? Or the stories that they just arbitrarily steal from independent media and then never accredit them and then act like it's their own. That accredit media, that one that gets the tax credits on their own, or they get extra funding, taxpayer provided funding through the media fund, controlled by the Liberal government, controlling which of all these mainstream medias say and do and publish. You mean like the CBC that gets over 1.4 billion of original tax dollars for their original content that only originally seems to get 4.4% of the Canadian population interested in what they do? That original content? But that's not what's really interesting about this particular article. It's this piece right here where he says Cormier told CBC the Green Party had cooked the books by telling the commission it intended to run candidates in the vast majority of ridings while telling media that it chose not to run candidates in some ridings to avoid splitting the vote. Typical left-wing behavior. They will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, they will do things that are unethical and immoral just to get control over you. And of course, get some extra money in their pocket. And then with the other hand, that'll be in your wallet. And that hand in your wallet, that one that's feeding their wallet, the one that you can't stop them grabbing money from your wallet from, that hand, well, that hand is being slapped away soon, we hope, by the next government. Should the Conservatives get in, if they actually stick to their word. And if they do, well, that would explain why they're all losing their minds.
That's why.
So that was journalists losing their minds finding out that the Scrum had been cancelled. So this article here by Mr. Terry Newman, it's really good. It's fair and balanced. He's got some stuff in there. And I think there's a few pieces that we need to read. While it's not the Commission's job officially, it's not mentioned in their mandate, post-leadership debate scrums, a gathering of journalists around a politician to ask questions and obtain quotes, are a standard practice. And it's suggested under the media accreditation section of their site that they will occur. And a scrum did occur the night before, after the French leadership debate, as well as after both the English and French debates in 2019 and 2021. So I guess their reasoning is, we had a scrum the first night, so, we kind of filled our unofficial mandate. So what are you complaining about? If, as the commissioner points out, debates are important for reasons of public interest, then so too are scrums. They're an opportunity for reporters to ask questions which may not have been asked, just like they did, right? Or sufficiently answered during the debate. And that's where Rebel News come in. They actually asked questions that weren't discussed during the debate. And what did the legacy media say and do to complain? Those were not debate topics. They should not be asking the politicians that, blah, 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 blah. We need to control the message. Enough of that. Enough of that bloody bullshit. Let's go down to the bottom. Go down to the end. After realizing they perhaps should not have invited that many non-traditional reporters and receiving blowback from other journalists, that these outlets were even there in the first place, it seems the Commission simply gave up and decided to cancel the English debate scrums to avoid any further blowback. The cowards. That's right. They don't know what to do. They tried to put in rules. They tried to put in laws. They tried to do everything they could to try to keep independent media out. But independent media, is starting to get more eyeballs than the legacy. Because after all, we're just normal people, regular people, living our lives every day, interacting what's going on around us. And I have spent my entire adult life screaming at the TV, screaming at the radio, scrunching up newspapers and throwing them in the trash, reading the crap that was in there. And for years, we were like, why aren't they asking politicians the real questions? Why aren't they discussing the real topics? Now, mind you, this is still going on today in some aspects, but at least there's a venue. It started off with the blogs. And on the blogs, we could finally publish stuff and print stuff and write our own articles. And if they didn't get picked up in letters to the editor or other publications wouldn't print them, we didn't care. We had our own little publication. And now, of course, this has morphed now over the years because video is now much more available because we have the eyeballs and we have our own brains where we can make our own decisions. And we don't need the mainstream media to tell us how to think, what is mis and disinformation, because we know every time you pull that BS, you're trying to pull one over on us. This has been Occam's Razor. Thanks for viewing to the end. Like, share, subscribe. See you next time.